Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Whistle Blows. Tottenham are bang in a relegation fight, but we're going to talk about how we can get out of it today. I've got two saviours with me. I've got Connor, as always. How you doing, my friend Connor? It's actually been a little while since we've been on together, hasn't it? It's been about a week or so. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good. I missed the 10 a.m. Saturday job. I was no way getting away with that after just coming back from the stag do. If I left my wife with that, I think we would have got divorced. But yeah, it's good to be back on, and obviously good to be on with podcasting royalty in the Tottenham community with Jag here.
Yeah,
too kind.
A man who needs no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway. Friend of the show, friend of both myself and Connor's. Jack, aka Trunk. How you doing, my friend?
Good, thank you. That's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
I was just thinking, Jack, because I've been on your podcast a few times. Just sort of thinking, we've probably been doing this together for about God knows how long now. It's well over 10 years, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's quite some time.
I think, looking back, that you are the OG content creator before content creation was even a thing, wasn't it? You're, just tell everyone, how did you get into? Because you are so far ahead of the curve, in my opinion. How did you get into the game?
Don't rub it in, Billie. It's painful to think that I had my greatest spell of creativity when YouTube, wasn't what it is today. But yeah, I used to.
You were the trailblazer.
So I used to make a lot of little short films and stuff like that. I did a film degree, and I came out of that, and started making my own little short films, entering them to little film festivals and stuff. And I always quite liked the old Monty Python, Terry Gilliam style 2D little sort of cutout animations. And I pour hours into doing all my short films and all these little animations, and there'd be 3 views on YouTube and stuff. And then I just did one, just randomly. It was when Harry Redknapp sort of put the drinks ban on the Tottenham squad. And I just thought, I remember that old Sham 69 song where they're singing "Come on, Harry, we're going down the pub" sort of thing. I thought, yeah, I'll do like a little Tottenham sort of parody video to that. And I stuck that on YouTube, and then suddenly it was I don't know, I can't remember. It was 10,000 views or something like that, which back then was hang on, I might be onto something here. So yeah, I just made a load of these little sort of animation things, which probably haven't dated very well, haven't aged very well. I mean, these were being made in 2008. So
we were, you in particular, we were on Levy's case even back then, weren't we? We were before.
Yes. Yeah, I mean So we made them for quite some time, didn't we? And we did the the Levy Hokey Cokey first was the first one, and then Totemium Rhapsody, which was probably the big one, which was it's good fun.
And really, not a lot has changed in that time, has it? It's basically it's basically the same old stuff. Levy leaving us short. And I remember even back then, that was that was absolutely years ago we made that video, but same principle. We're pretty much talking about the same stuff 10, 15 years later. So
shout out to Saruzi as well for jumping in on that.
So not much really changes with these owners, and we're definitely going to be talking about that. Before we do go into Tottenham and their relegation troubles, we do have to cross off some unfortunate business of the weekend. So I know all 3 of us are in attendance. But Jack, just talk to you about your day so far, on your experience of the actual game, because I listened to Rule the Roost straight after I saw your content as well, and I know it was ended up being a horrific result, but the actual day before was quite a bit of a different one, wasn't it, for what we've seen recently? How was your North London Derby experience before the actual football happened?
I mean, that's it, isn't it? If ever the old sort of saying that the worst thing about a day at the football is the match itself, it was that. It was that North London Derby. I really did feel, I really was starting to believe. I know a few people have sort of said in retrospect, what were you thinking? How could you have believed that? They had a blip against Wolves, but look at our injury problems. Look at how they always show up against us. But going into it, I did think, we do have that bounce. Maybe they are starting to have a bit of a wobble. Maybe, we will just manage to just get something horrible. And do you know what? I felt more emboldened by the energy that was on the Tottenham High Road me and Phil got up there for about 11 o'clock or so, and it was already buzzing, up and down the High Road. Most of the pubs had people in. and you could see that there was. It wasn't like, I don't think it was, you know, any sort of like a delusion or anything like that, but there was definitely a sense of cautious optimism amongst a lot of Spurs fans, and people just seemed sort of happy. They seemed happy, and they seemed like they were up for the game, which is exactly what we need right now in the situation we find ourselves in. But you need in any North London derby, right? And we could have easily approached that game, like as fans, thinking, oh God, it's them. They're so good. They're so much better than us. We've got all these injuries. This is just going to be miserable. But we didn't. You know, to dare is to do. It seemed like people were up for it. And yeah, that lasted for like, what, five minutes into the game, did it? If even that.
Something like that. And
I mean, the atmosphere at the game, like the tifo, all of it was incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like,
it really was. It was. And, you know, kind of fans have been criticised a lot lately, I believe, always unfairly, particularly after what we sit through and what we pay, or what anyone pays to get into that stadium. But do you think that it's fair to say fans played their part? Fans turned up and did their bit on the weekend?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I echo Jack's sentiment. I think I was in the number 8 before the game. It's by far the busiest I've seen that for some time, which is no mean feat given the price of a beer in there. But yeah, it was rammed. The sun was shining. There was definitely a bit of cautious optimism, maybe a little bit unfounded. But I think everyone was definitely. I think after the Wolves result, and also, you know, obviously Frank going and just that little bit of hope until the game actually started, as Jack says. But the fans definitely got behind the players in the best way that they could. I think the tifo was good. You know, under the concourse in the South Stand, Bill, where we went after the protests, you know, that was absolutely buzzing in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was rammed, and you know, a lot of chanting. And so, yeah, I mean, look, the Tottenham fans, and I'm with you, Bill. They've been criticised, and they continue to get criticised by the mainstream media as well, right? As if it's somehow our fault, and you know, unreasonable expectations. As I've always said on that, you know, we're not the ones who tried to take this football club into the European Super League, and we're not the ones that come out before this season started and spoke about, you know, winning the league and the Champions League and set the prices where we did and all of that type of stuff, right? So there's not, you know, our expectations have been set because of what we understand the club can be, right? And but even still, you know, you've seen what is it, 4 home wins in a year? It's averaging sort of, even for mine, which is one of the more reasonable season tickets, it's costing me about 300 quid a win before I even buy a beer or travel to the game or whatever, right? And that doesn't, you know, how much we spend doesn't give us a divine right to win stuff, but it does set a level of expectation. You know, we should be taking games to certain teams. Obviously, Arsenal is not one of them right now, but yeah, there definitely was a bit of that optimism, and I think the fans were great again.
Yeah, and I can tell where I sit in sort of almost front row. I can tell it's a big game. It reminds me of like being on the old Shelf or the old South Stand, where there's about 4 people in every seat. You know, something's gone wrong with the account in there, but in the South Stand, there's about 4 people on every seat. So definitely the overcrowdedness, which I like, does add atmosphere. And I think for the first time in a very long time, I think the limbs for the first goal was insane, wasn't it? Like the equaliser. Haven't had that kind of feeling for a long time this season, and it was good to get that. But Jack, I think it's fair to say the fans turned up. Would you say the players did?
I mean, this seems to have really sort of been a divisive topic over the past few days, I would say.
Yeah, it's a bit polarised, isn't it, this one?
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, Randa Kolo Muani did. I mean, I would say it's the best performance we've seen from him ever in a Spurs shirt. Maybe, you know, PSG game notwithstanding. But no, I don't really feel that they did, mate. And I know there's a lot going into this. We do have a lot of injuries. I can't remember who it was. Somebody made the point. It was one of the, like, I can't remember if it was like one of the athletics pods or one of the BBC ones or something, but somebody made the point that the problem that Spurs have right now is that you look at the sort of mismatch of players that we have available to us. There isn't really a system or a way of playing that suits those players. And it makes it quite difficult, and it makes it quite uncomfortable to really lay into a lot of them. So there are sort of other metrics which I do, and they're maybe a bit more proper football, man. But I don't know if they fully are. And one of the main things that me and Phil noticed was just a lack of fight for the second ball across the game constantly. And I think this is even before we went 3-1 down. I mean, 3-1 down, that's when they went, like the heads went, and they'd thrown in the towel by that point. But at the same time, yeah, I know we're not on the same level as Arsenal. Yep, I know technically they're much better than us. They're probably fitter than us. They're better trained than us. Whatever, there's a lot more momentum going into it. But at the same time, how many times have we been the team that's been the better team? Forget even Arsenal. When we're talking your West Broms, you're talking your Wolveses, these sort of teams down the years that we're better than technically, we're fitter than, we've got the higher profile players, so on and so forth. How many times does that opposition team get one over us because they want it that bit more? They give it that extra bit of fight. And that's why I don't let the players off entirely. Look, ultimately, yes, I'm sure we're going to get onto this. I know the club haven't managed the squad very well at all. The people that own the club have not had a proper footballing philosophy, a proper footballing strategy. But at the same time, I don't think you can sit here and say in good conscience that these players don't have to shoulder some of the blame when we've seen. Well, just look at. I don't even need to talk about the past 2 seasons. Let's just look at this season. Look where we are in the league. Look at we don't win games. We concede so many goals. And ultimately, the front end of the control is in the players' hands. They are the tip of the iceberg, right? And it is in their hands to at least have that sort of that action that has a direct consequence on the fortunes of the club, right? And yeah, maybe they're not getting the most help from the club itself, but Van der Ven, that's one of our best players, and he's doing the Sky Sports interviews, and I know, I get it. I know what people are going to say. Can you blame him? No, not really. But at the same time, you're at a pretty good club already, mate.
Captain as well at the weekend. Captain.
I feel like I'm just ranting about the players now, Bill. But it's one of those, isn't it?
It is. We're certainly going to come on to that, and we've got a little bit later on. We have got a very stark league table that I'm going to show you guys towards the end of the show to really show how, even beyond the season, how bad it is. And I do think a lot of the responsibility does lie on the players because, there's been several different managers in this time. And, we've seen the same concern and things. But today we're going to try and at least look above rather than below and try and think, is there a way that Tottenham can get out of this mess? And I'll just really have a couple more questions on the North London Derby before we move on. I think everyone will agree. You can't obviously read too much into Igor Tudor at the moment because it's a really difficult first game. But Connor, did you see anything at all? Was there any kind of tactical difference in this game than there has been before? Did Igor Tudor do anything differently, or did you notice anything? Because personally speaking, I just feel like Arsenal it felt like when you're in the stadium, Arsenal had about 95% of possession that whole game. Is what it felt like. I didn't really see anything. It was a horrific watch, I would say, from a Tottenham fan point of view. What did you make of it, sort of tactically and Igor Tudor wise?
Yeah, I agree. It was an awful watch. It was very, very similar to the game at the Emirates, right, where we went 3 at the back, but that very, very quickly became a 5 at the back, which was pinned back with no sort of press whatsoever. They absolutely dominated. If you want to see the difference between having some ambitions, and I know he made the mistake for our goal, but you watch Declan Rice just run all over our midfield. It was men against boys.
Could not get anywhere near him, could we, all game?
No. It was the vast chasm in ability and want and everything, right? You talk about heads going down. I know people like to take the piss, but you just watch the way he then comes out of making a mistake like that and just continues to run the game. It's just head straight up, and it's just a complete chasm in where they are and where we are, which is sad to say. And when Jack was talking there, I was just thinking about, and we're, everyone is right. We've got a lot of injuries right now. We've got players playing out of position, but Derby should be a bit of a leveler, right? Is my view. They should always be a little bit of a leveler. because there is just that want from the team that is the underdog. And we've seen it over the years, right? We've seen it when we had players like Gary Doherty playing for us, but we'd still nick a draw at home against Arsenal when they had, a team that was vastly superior to Tottenham's team at times, when they were challenging for league titles and we were, like we are now, but we'd still, whereas, in the last, what is it? They've won 5 in a row now. They keep coming to our place and just taking us for an absolute dog walk whenever they come to Tottenham Stadium. It's just an absolute shambles in it. And, there is no leveler in this derby. And, the cheek of Tottenham to get to limit Man City to 1 point in this title race, but then give 6 so easily up to Arsenal,
plus
which could be the difference, right? It just
plus 6 on the goal difference for Arsenal as well. My big concern was the fact that after all that we just spoke about, the fans really played their part. We had a new manager. Thomas Frank era was over going into it. And yet, if you look at the Wolves and Brentford matches against Arsenal, there was much more fight in those 2 games than we had, which is a big concern for me. I do wonder if Arsenal dropping points to Wolves ended up backfiring on our part because they kind of knew that they had to win this game and they bloody played like it without a doubt. I'm struggling to look for any kind of positives. This is about the only one I could find here for anyone that's watching on video, is that Archie Gray just booted the ball into the Arsenal fans, which didn't notice in the stadium at the time, but he did get banned. He did get a yellow card for that, which I think in retrospect is well worth it. Jack, I know you already mentioned Kolo Muani, and obviously we haven't even touched upon the refereeing incident yet. Was there any kind of positives at all that we can take from this game?
I don't know, mate. I don't want to be one of those.
I didn't really leave feeling any, to be honest. I'll be honest.
No, and I know what people are saying, and I don't necessarily feel this, but I know what people are saying in that, we scored 2, and we did score 2 legitimate goals against a side that doesn't really concede many goals. Kolo Muani, was very good. And I guess just the main thing. So Conor Mummery, who I had on my pod the other day, did say one thing that has probably stuck with me, which is, all right, yeah, we've lost to Arsenal. We can't lose sight of the fact they're a very good team. Let's not forget all of the things that we sort of said just before the Arsenal game about Igor Tudor. He is somebody that is experienced in keeping clubs up in, these, or at least say changing the fortunes of a club midway through a season, dealing with very fractured dressing rooms, all the things we've heard about Igor Tudor. Those things haven't just disappeared. So, hopefully he will have learnt something from that Arsenal game.
And he did come out and say, didn't he, that he said something along the lines that he sees like he didn't realise. Well, he almost said he didn't realise how bad it was, but he realised now. He said the players got bad habits and stuff, didn't he? Good players have bad habits.
Exactly that. And so that's it. But there's, to sort of bring it back, there's only so much you can do, isn't there? There's only so much you can do with the players at his disposal. We'll just have to see. Yeah, we'll just have to see. But no, mate, I'm not. I didn't really see much that we could take forward from that, other than just the hope that Rando Kolo Muani can just, want to stay in the shop window till the end of the season. And what a miserable place is that to be in as a football club now, that we are simply a platform for him to get his move to wherever, because he scores some goals for Spurs,
I'm just going to finish by asking a very provocative question to Connor, and tongue in cheek, of course. But Connor, would Harry Kane ever miss a North London derby with a sore throat? That's my hope.
No, it's the straight answer. No, I don't think it would. But actually, to be honest, I thought Solanke did all right when he came on. He at least tried. He put a bit of work in and linked up the play. Tried to link up the play a little bit, and a sore throat is pretty pathetic reason to miss an North London derby.
I just feel like, I know Muani scored 2 great goals and 1.5 goals, and there was just no outball though at all, was there? There was no outball to with Solanke. At least you can sort of go long, and he will try and hold the ball up. Solanke is Moani, is obviously much more of a runner. So even if we'd have had Solanke and Moani up front together, it would have been so much more. And I don't, I'm obviously being facetious when I talk about his sore throat, but it just the alarm bell's definitely ringing for me. I just think, if you can play hard, I just can't imagine Harry Kane ever doing it, is what I'm saying. I just don't think that would ever happen in a million years. I think it does maybe talk to some wider problems that we have with maybe player attitude. But obviously, I'm not pretending to be a doctor or anything like that. So obviously, this show, we're going to move on from that now. So I think it's been done to death anyway. I don't think we really want to delve too much more into that game, and probably want to forget. Someone just put in the chat there, it's been another horrific year of derbies. We've lost all 3 of the big ones at home. Not for the first time in the last couple of years even. It's just one thing I did say, I remember saying it on Last One on Spurs last summer, is that when we got Thomas Frank, I really did hope that would be at least one thing we would get right, is we'd be more competitive in the derbies like Brentford always were. It's just been absolutely miserable again. And I know we've got to go to Chelsea, don't we? And talk about that a bit later on. But my God, it's been horrific for fans in the derbies of the last 3-4 years. So this show obviously is designed to talk about the R words, relegation, and hopefully ending with a positive outlook on it. And we're not miracle workers. I'm not sure there's much we can spin, but hopefully we'll have a look at what we can do to survive this. Before we look at the sort of reports that have come out, sort of mathematically where they think Tottenham are, I just want to get your personal feelings. Jack, what is your gut feeling currently, and how are you feeling about the threat of relegation?
I think it's very real. I think it's terrifying, quite frankly. I don't see any positives to it. I don't really buy into the idea that, well, it'll make Enoch sell up, or it will make them address the team properly, or it will mean that we'll integrate our youth players. All these kind of things that people sort of say to brightside it are things that we can still do if we're in the Premier League. It shouldn't have to take getting relegated for the owners to sort their shit out. Sorry, I'm allowed to swear on this one. But yeah, it shouldn't have to take that. And I don't want Spurs anywhere near the Championship. And I am worried that, the louder the conversation around it gets, we look. This is a Tottenham safe space, lads. We know what it's like. We know how much the rest of the country would love to see this happen. We know it, right? It's not us. It's not us. Thinking we're this or that, or we're so important. We know. Turn on the darts, Bill. You watch the darts, right? You know what the whole country, what the majority of Europe thinks about Tottenham, right? I just, oh God, this happening the year they are as good as they are is is hell. It's hellish. What's going on? Like, how are we having this conversation? Why are we not just sat? Honestly, wouldn't it be bad enough if we were sat here like, well, we're going to finish 4th, we're going to be in the Champions League, but oh my God, Arsenal are going to win the league. Yeah. Arsenal are going to win the double. Arsenal are going to win the treble, the quadruple. Like, that would be bad enough if we were still all right. It's the fact that that's happening while we're in this state is simulation theory.
It is a nightmare in living realm, isn't it? And do you know what it reminds me of is when you say that? And this is my major concern with relegation. Is it reminds me of the Leicester season when every single team almost wanted Leicester to win and Tottenham to lose, and everything didn't go our way, including referee decisions, which we've obviously seen all season. And almost teams were turning up to roll over for Leicester and fight against us just because of the narrative that Leicester would win the league. And if you remember that West Ham, I always remember that Leicester-West Ham game, the day that we played Man United, when West Ham essentially rolled over for Leicester just so Tottenham wouldn't win the league. It just reminds me of this, we could fall into that where teams would just play us thinking we could send Tottenham down here and this will be absolutely brilliant. And I'm sorry, I know fans will be labelled as well. Everyone thinks that about their own team, but there is a difference with Tottenham. I'm sorry, there is. Jack alluded to it there. We see it all season in the media. Tottenham are the punching bag of everyone just because and we could do a whole podcast on this eventually, but we're the lowest rung of the big six. So everyone loves to take a shot at us because we're sort of above them, but we're not really. And that's why we get all of this ridiculous sort of narrative come our way. So I'm just worried everything's going to transpire against us. And we've already kind of seen it with referees in the last few games. But Connor, how are you feeling about relegation? And we will come on to the financials and the implications of it in a minute. But what's your sort of, where are you at emotionally wise in terms of relegation?
Yeah, I think we're banging trouble. I think Jack's right, and I think the worry for me is all the things you just said in terms of when it gets to that stage where teams haven't got a lot to play for, they suddenly will find something to play for because it's hilarious to send Tottenham down. I think we're playing worse than every other team in the league. That's proven both statistically and just watching us. I mean, I watch
eye test and statistically.
Yeah. I mean, West Ham are playing much better than us now.
Forest in the Liverpool game as well. Not to do that.
Yeah, so we're banging trouble. I think the only thing that might end up saving us, I think, is that West Ham's fixtures are pretty terrible. And they've got what are we 4 points above them now, but obviously with goal difference it's effectively 5. And if we can get some players back and they can hit the ground running, I think Porro and Danso are back in training, right? So that's 2 that go straight into the back 5. That will help. But I think Tottenham's ownership, we'll come on to this when we speak about it later. I don't think they've really grasped it yet. I still don't think they've grasped it, even though they've sacked Frank.
Me neither.
I think, even the season ticket renewal thing is an example, right? It's a case in point. They send that out now. They're doing their classic PR spins in the media, which we're going to talk about later, as always. I think they think they're too big to go down.
Just to jump in, like the fact they're already talking about like recategorizing Newcastle. We don't know we're even going to be playing them next season. Like, take this seriously, like you say, Connor. Like you're not too big to go down. We are banging trouble. Like for the love of God, take something seriously. They just seem incapable of doing it.
And we are definitely going to come on to the Lewis family at the end of this. We are going to talk about all of that later on. I'm just going to show this graph, first of all, for anyone that's watching on video. So this is Opta. Opta seems to suggest at the moment we've got a 4.8% chance of going down. West Ham, 71% chance. Nottingham Forest, 23% chance. Leeds and Palace. Palace have now got a 0.5%. There is, they won at the weekend. Leeds, quite a small chance of 2%. They had a good draw at the weekend again. They're in quite a decent form. I think they've lost 2 games in 13 or something like that. At least they've had a lot of draws, but they haven't had a lot of losses either. My concern with this graph is it doesn't take what it's essentially doing is sort of, and we're going to come on to it in a bit as well, is looking at all the fixtures that everyone's got left and essentially mathematicizing it all. And my concern is in January we had Brentford, Sunderland, Burnley and West Ham, a pretty much as easy as possible run of 4 fixtures that you can possibly get statistically, and we didn't win any of them. So I'm not sure how much these percentages work. But Jack, when you sort of look at, and we are going to look at the remaining 10 fixtures in a minute. Do you think this offers any kind of hope that statistically we're only 5% chance to go down, and West Ham are, in terms of mathematically, they're 71% likely?
I mean, it's I don't know, mate. Like football doesn't work like that for me. That's the problem. It's chaos, and you can try and put a. I mean, look, Benham and the other one would say different, right? Like the sort of the statistical models that they've built up at Brentford and Brighton, respectively. The betting models that they base a lot of their footballing decisions upon have done them both very well. And I know a lot of this stuff defaults back to the sophisticated kind of, statistical models that the betting companies use. So I guess you probably have to take some hope in that respect. But at the same time, what were the odds on Leicester to win the Premier League? It's
5,000 to 1 at the time.
It simply doesn't account for chaos. It doesn't account for the fact that Spurs, what happens if Solanke goes down again and he's suddenly out for however long? What happens if Richarlison does himself in or doesn't come back fully fit? There's so many variables and so many things that can just continue to go wrong that I look those numbers anyway. I don't know how they've calculated that. I would, like you say, you would definitely have to look at that and say that it's Forest, West Ham, and Spurs are surely closer than that percentage wise. But you know, it's not my field of expertise, mate. All I can sort of default back to is saying that you know, these things they're predictive models, aren't they? But it's not actually predicting what's going to happen. So,
and they always do that thing, don't they, where the Opta supercomputer predicts Arsenal to win the league, and generally speaking they haven't, but maybe this year will be the one that they finally do it. Let's hope not, though. But just going to hand over to Connor for a little bit, because there was this interesting table that came out from Kieran Maguire. We might do a show in a bit more detail. I know, Jack, you've also had a really good show, which I'll ask you about in a minute as well. Talking about the financial implications. We're not going to go into massive detail at the moment. We might do a proper show on it later. Maybe when the reality gets even more worse than the 5%. If it goes to 10%, we'll do an hour-long special on it. But Connor, what would sort of be the financial implications, roughly speaking, of Tottenham going down? Just give us a quick little overview.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's pretty catastrophic, right? As you can see here, and you know, I think Kieran, who I speak to a bit, you know, we were chatting about this a little bit as well, and it makes pretty grim reading. Obviously, there's some assumptions in terms of what will happen in terms of the commercial income. We don't know what exactly is in some of those sponsorship agreements. Who might have relegation clauses that actually allow them to pull out. But I think this is a pretty conservative estimate, actually, because he's only got that coming down by sort of about 50 million. So. And then obviously the league revenue goes down massively. Champions League, assuming we don't win it, which I don't think is going to happen. Obviously, you lose that, and then match day. Well, let's see what happens. Obviously, they're frozen the ticket prices, but you're going to expect there's going to be a big hit on match day revenue, which is shown here. So, I mean, he's got a sort of, what's that, 250 million or something hit in terms of revenue. The ironic thing here is, though, that even at that sort of championship estimated level of 348 million, would still be the 7th highest revenue probably in the Premier League, with Villa and Chelsea overtaking us. So still more than sort of Newcastle, Palace, West Ham, etc., etc. So and probably still higher than the likes of AC Milan and Juventus, which just shows what a financial behemoth that we are, that we can get relegated to the Championship and you're still probably in the top 15 highest revenue clubs in the world, at least in that first year. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think we would be on the brink of bankruptcy, as some people have started to sort of speculate. If we went down, it would obviously be catastrophic in terms of the hit, and you know, we would for sure struggle. But you'd have to assume that suddenly we would, you know, we'd have a fire sale of players for sure. Obviously, most of them will want to go. That cuts the wages down. I mean, to give you some sense on the wages, obviously we speak a lot on this show about how our wages are not high enough. But you know, at sort of about 250 million that we are at, the average in the Championship is 38 million. So, you know, it's a vast difference. And I think I said to you beforehand, Bill, about 19-20 of the clubs in the Championship, their revenue is 50 million or less. So this is unprecedented, right, in terms of size of club. And people talk about, I caught a bit, unfortunately for me, of Paul Scholes and Nicky Butt speaking about whether we'd be the biggest club to ever get relegated, and they were like trying to speculate that we wouldn't. We would by some way. I know that Aston Villa are a big club, and it's happened to Leeds and Newcastle, but Tottenham are a bigger club than those, and certainly in terms of this stuff, it's completely unprecedented, and this is what's very, very different to when we got relegated in '77, right? At that point, the vast difference in the financials was nothing like this, and so. Yeah, it would be the shock of the century, I think.
I can't remember. I think it was on View from the Lane podcast. Apologies if it wasn't. Apologies if I've gotten the wrong pod. But I think they said something like, in terms of like the scale of Tottenham's, like you say, the size, the operation. I think it was something like, if you just remove the footballing aspects of the operation, simply the non-match day stuff, so the gigs, the fights, the F1, the this, the that, I think Spurs are still making more money than most Championship clubs, or maybe all Championship clubs, or something kind of mad like that.
Yeah, I mean, that is probably about right. I mean, just in terms of the commercial revenue, which obviously includes that non-footballing stuff, but also our sponsorship deals and all of that type of stuff. I mean, that alone, using Kieran's championship estimated number of 224, would be sort of double the next highest in the championship. So even if we didn't play a single football match, now obviously we wouldn't have the sponsors if we weren't playing football, but you sort of get a sense of the size of the financials. I mean, it's completely unprecedented.
Yeah,
Which
Jack,
does make me think, to be fair, sorry, Bill, I didn't mean to cut across you, but a lot of people say we wouldn't come straight back up. In my view, we would, because we'd lose a number of players, but we'd still have players that are good enough, and then we'd have the ability to get players in that would be at the those championship clubs just couldn't compete with us financially, even still.
And Jack, I know you had a really good show on your channel because this story was doing the rounds, and surprise, surprise, it was Matt Law, who loves to stick the boot in at this time, was talking about.
You've got on mute, Bill. I think you must have hit your mic.
My mic says unplugged there, but I know you did a really good show talking about sponsors and what would happen if Tottenham sort of went down in terms of that. Where can people find that, and what was the kind of takeaways that you've had from that one?
So yeah, I mean, I don't want to butcher. So I spoke to Sean Connell, who's from a magazine called The Sponsor, and they sort of run their own models on the fair market value of sponsorship opportunities, and they produce kind of pretty sort of reports every year or so about the value of football clubs across Europe, their front of shirt sponsorship, their sleeve, their stadium naming rights, and everything like that. I mean, one of the sort of the important points that Sean raised to me is that Spurs' AIA deal is coming to an end at probably just such a uniquely difficult time for Tottenham, in the respect that our form is awful. The actual climate in general for anybody getting a new shirt sponsorship is awful as well. Betting sponsorships have obviously been banned from the front of shirts from next year, and that's caused basically a big bun fight. I think it was 11 or so of 20 Premier League clubs have got betting sponsors on the front of their shirt. That's a lot of clubs now that need to find new sponsors, and they're all getting lowballed, I believe. And Spurs are probably not going to be offered a lot of money, even if they do stay up in the Premier League right now. So yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating discussion. I mean, there were still positives to take from it. It wasn't all doom and gloom. We do have incredible infrastructure. We are a club with a huge fan base. We are a club that has an incredible sort of, community project with the Tottenham Hotspur Foundation, and things like that do mean a lot to, that does mean a lot to sponsors. But, the club needs to, like I said earlier, the club needs to sort its act out. They need to get some star players in. They need to start playing well. They need to be in the Champions League regularly, because, right now it's miles off. Kind of, I think one of the main pieces of context that he gave me is that Daniel Levy reportedly valued Tottenham's stadium naming rights at, if I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I believe it was £24 million a season. I think it was £24 million a season he valued it at, and the context is, like, I think Real Madrid, Barcelona are getting 12 million euros a season off of Spotify. That's a club that's always in the Champions League. That's a club that more often than not wins their domestic league, has a far greater kind of international footprint than Tottenham Hotspur does, as loath as we are to probably admit. I mean, are we really? It's Barcelona, isn't it? So yeah, I think it just sort of highlighted that, there was quite a lot of blue sky thinking at Tottenham that probably wasn't overly justified, but it's not all doom and gloom. There are still things, but it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for us now, and it would have been regardless of our form probably, but we're not making it any better for ourselves. So yeah, check it out on Rule the Roost. That's my pod.
Yeah,
so.
definitely go and check that out. And I'm sure as the months come on, there's going to be plenty more conversations around that. So we do want to look to the future and look above, and we're trying to sort of think about how on earth we can get out of this mess. I think obviously one of our biggest problems that we've had the last 2 seasons now is the ridiculous injury situation that we find ourselves in. And anyone that's listening to audio here, you can see there is an injury table, and we've got quite a number of players that are out. But we did see today, Connor, that Danso and Porro are back in training. Obviously, we had Richarlison back on the bench at the Northland Derby. He managed to come on. Solanke was on the bench as well. But looking at this injury table, it doesn't seem to be many are close to return. Other than, Kulusevski says March on this table. I wouldn't hold any credence to that. And then, Kudus is probably potentially back after the next international break. Other than that, there's not really anyone particularly returning anytime soon. And I think Bergvall was 6 weeks away a week ago, so now he'd be 5 weeks away. But do you think, Connor, that sort of Danso, Porro, obviously Richarlison as well, do you think that'll make a big difference to the upcoming games?
It helps for sure, because I think you can suddenly, you don't have to put Archie Gray as a right wing back. You can put Porro there. And similarly, Paolini, you can move into midfield with Danso coming in. To be honest, we need Romero back from suspension. I know Romero seems to polarise the fan base a little bit, and he does some donut things, but this football team can't pass, and Romero can pass. And he's by far the best passer in the squad. And so, particularly when you're playing 3 at the back and you need to progress the ball, we need him back from his suspension. But yeah, so look, I think if those 2 can play against Fulham, that's helpful. And then hopefully Solanke's got over it, had a couple more strepsils and got over his sore throat, and he'll be able to start with Moani if you're gonna go 2 up top. So it would help. I always felt when Kudus went down, which felt inevitable because he was, overplaying a little bit and not really being rotated and being asked to sort of do everything as well at the time, hold the ball up against 3 players consistently. I felt that was a big, big miss for us because he was our one little bit of a spark in terms of the attacking positions, and desperate for him to come back as well. But I think that was April, wasn't it, on their bill? It said. And then Udogie must not be that far away, although he'll probably come back for 3 games and get another hamstring, which would help because we've got no width on the left. I saw something was doing the rounds on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw it, where they were basically saying it showed all the teams with where their attacking comes from, and ours on the right is so dominant on the right because obviously we don't have any sort of left width whatsoever, and so Udogie's a big miss.
Yeah, and he's down on transfer marks as being in the middle of March, so not massively far away. That's about 2 weeks away now, 2.5 weeks, something like that. But badly needed. For anyone that is listening on audio, we're going to go to a quick break, and for anyone that's not, we're going to go straight into looking at the final 10 games that Tottenham have left to save themselves. And I think it's 11, sorry, actually. 11 games that Tottenham have left to save ourselves. And we'll do this in the chat as well. Now, it's kind of been reported. I know that some of my more doom-mongering type friends are trying to figure out exactly how many wins that we need to survive. And so the magic number seems to be about 3 or 4 wins out of the remaining 11, which is particularly concerning when we've got about, I think, 2 wins in 15 Premier League games. Which is absolutely mental when you think about it. Let's just have a little read of these fixtures then. So we've got Fulham, Crystal Palace. Then we have a 10-day break. Then we've got Liverpool and Nottingham Forest. Then another international break. We've got Sunderland, Brighton, Wolves, Aston Villa, Leeds, Chelsea and Everton. The alarm bell's ringing for me. I don't know if anybody saw at the weekend that Sheffield United relegated Sheffield Wednesday. I look at that Chelsea game on the second last game of the season away and think, God, if they could relegate us in that game, they would absolutely love to do that. So feel free to play along in the chat as well. We're going to look at these games and I'll ask the guys. Jack, looking at that list of fixtures there, say Tottenham need 3 or 4 wins. What fixtures do we really need to prioritise? And I was speaking to Connor before we came on air, actually, just because the Champions League games were on. I think no no one can really argue at the moment. We probably need to bin that off and just forget about it because
yeah.
it's a very unwelcome distraction.
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? Like, you know, we all have a good laugh. I mean, you and I, Billy, especially, like, we like to have a laugh about, you know, getting relegated and winning the Champions League, all that type of thing. It's getting serious now. Just bin the Champions League. Like, I
completely agree.
It's a total distraction. We can't be risking players. We can't just get rid of it. Like, stick the kids out there. Let them enjoy the evening. Where can we
agree? So if we're looking at these fixtures, then Jack, I want you to choose 3 that you think, or maybe 4 that Tottenham could possibly win.
I mean,
and I'll ask the same question to you, Connor.
Palace at home. We have to win Palace at home. It's in our own hands. We've got to beat Forest, and I know it's difficult. We have to beat them. We can't drop points there. I think Brighton should be winnable. They're not so hot themselves at the moment. Wolves away, I don't think will be as easy as people think it will be. Leeds at home, I would probably still back us
in about 6 Premier League games. I think it is.
Exactly. Leeds at home, I would still probably back us to get a result against. So let's say if you know, Palace, Forest, Brighton, Leeds. Let's say. I mean, we don't win games. We don't win games at home either. Like, you know, this is the thing. This is what I tell myself. Like, it's easy to say it like this, isn't it? But then you reflect back and you're like, we don't win games, right? But those are the ones. So that's my 4, Bill.
Connor, where's your 4 games that we're going to win here? Well, look, firstly, Connor, are there any games that we can rule out that we're definitely not going to win?
Yeah, I mean, I would take Liverpool away, even though they ain't been great this season, but our record at Anfield's a joke. Villa away will lose, Chelsea away would, and you know,
and then suddenly you've got 8 games left, which is scary, isn't it? You have to win half.
Yeah. I mean, it
actually makes me feel terrified. To be honest with you.
It does. Yeah, I mean, for a competent football club, what we actually should be, if we were, you know, in and around the European places, you'd take this as the last set of fixtures, though, probably, right? Because I think there's games there for a competent football club that wins games that are very winnable. You know, even Everton at home on the last game of the season, they're probably going to have nothing to play for. And so, fundamentally, I agree with the games Jack said. You know, Palace, you've got to beat Palace, you've got to beat Forest, particularly because of the momentum of that, with those 2 being in the next 4. Because if we're coming through those 4 games, you know, and you've lost or drew with Palace and Forest at home, then suddenly it really is for squeaky bum time, because they've caught up on you even further, and then you've lost 2 of your most winnable games that are left, right? So they're absolutely critical. I mean, our record at Fulham has been pretty tragic as well in recent years, isn't it? You know, I think we're going to struggle there. Wolves away, they might be downish by that stage, right? Which maybe makes that a slightly easier game. And then Jack's right. Leeds at home, you've got to win.
Yeah. So essentially, if you take out the Liverpool, Chelsea, Villa away, we have to win half our league games, which is actually quite concerning. I think anyone that doesn't think that the idea of the show was to make me feel better about relegation, but it's actually almost having the opposite effect. But
how about this, Bill? I mean, like the one thing I would say is, all right, they're having an all right season and everything, but Everton at home, if it comes down to the last day, Everton at home it's not the worst fixture. I would say. Yeah, you know, that's the only bit of like solace I can sort of chuck into this. You know.
Yeah, I just feel like if we're in the bottom 3 in that Chelsea game, that's going to be absolutely horrific. Even if we're sort of a point away or something like that from that Chelsea game. Chelsea away in the second last game of the season is terrifying, I would suggest. But yeah, I mean, I do agree though, Connor. I mean, this is, and statistically, I know we've already spoken about how statistics don't really mean much, but it's a much easier run than Forest and West Ham have on paper anyway. But you know, we've got to start winning games. We have to win games if we're going to stay in this league, and we're not winning any games at the moment. We are the only team in the Premier League not to have won a game in 2026, and it is March by the time we play our next game. So I've gone all January and February without winning the Premier League game. so concerning. But I just wanted to highlight another even more concerning league table that show that this is not just a blip. For those of you who are listening to audio, this is a league table of all the teams since the day that Harry Kane left, and essentially the last 3 seasons. And Tottenham are 17th in it. So this is not a blip anymore. This is not a one-off situation. This is 3 years of evidence. And on those 3 years, 100 Premier League games, we are 17th in the table. I would suggest that is an absolute disgrace. And the decline that we've had, not only since we've been in the new stadium and Pochettino, but the decline that we've had in the last 3 years in particular is absolutely disgraceful. There are teams Brentford, Everton, Palace, Fulham, Brighton, Burnley, Sunderland, Bournemouth are all well above us. Bournemouth are 9th actually in the last 100 games, which is pretty amazing, really, isn't it? But it's really, really stark viewing. This is not just a blip anymore.
Look at Leeds. Our Leeds up there. What?
Yeah, God knows how. Yeah, this is really, really worrying. Really, really concerning. And that leads me on to our favourite topic to end the show. Those that are above the station, the Lewis family, and everything that's going on there. Now, I saw this piece on a couple of days ago, Monday, I think it was. Spurs plan to rip up the wage structure and invest. I know we've already touched on it slightly. And invest in the squad if the club avoid relegation. And I'm not saying anything that's not already been said on Twitter. This stinks of a PR opportunity. It stinks of season ticket renewals. It stinks of the club all just ignoring the fact that we are quite likely to be relegated, or not likely, but we could well be relegated. Jack, what did you think of this piece?
I mean, like you say, season ticket renewals coming up. Same old, isn't it? Leave us alone. I'm pretty sure we've seen an example of this most seasons in the past 10 years. I'll absolutely believe it when I see it. But again, putting this stuff out now, to Connor's point earlier on in the podcast, you ain't thinking about the situation that we're in right now. Again, this is more, what is it people will say, jam tomorrow, isn't it? Next year when we're in the Premier League, it will be all rosy because actually we'll be serious this time. We promise. It's waffle. I don't believe it. Like the time now is show us. Show us that you mean it. And then we'll believe you. And for anybody that says the whole Spurs as Talk Sports and your Sky Sports and all that like to wheel out every now and again, Spurs have spent as much as Arsenal. Spurs have spent more than Arsenal. Arsenal's I'm sure you know this, Connor. Arsenal's operating whatever it is, finances have come out just the past few days, and their average wage in their squad is about £170,000 a week, which, when you consider our highest paid earner is apparently Conor Gallagher on 200k a week,
that was the real kicker, wasn't it? That Gallagher is the one that's on 200, the highest paid player, isn't it?
It tells you all that you need to know. Look, we've got to stay in the league. I want to see Venkatesh and I want to see Langer gone. I want to see him gone now, to be honest. I want to see that somebody's in here now planning for next season, what happens next year already, working out every single scenario. If we're in the Premier League, if we're in the Championship, we're wasting time. What are those two still doing in position? The board had to step in to get rid of Thomas Frank. Neither of them wanted to get rid of him. That's damning enough. Yeah, I mean, I can't muster the energy to believe in ENIC, believe in the Lewis family at all ever again. I can't do it until they show us, if they ever show us, that they actually mean business. They've run out of chances.
I mean, I could not say it any better than that, really. And I know that. You're preaching to the choir here on this show without a doubt. But Connor, anything to add to that? Really, I think it's pretty much what we always have pretty much been saying every show this season. But what did you make of that this idea that they're already thinking about? Well, if we do survive, then this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, that's complete nonsense. We need to focus on the task at hand at this point. But it's I mean, look, ENIC are a complete and utter disgrace. We've spoken about wages for God knows how many years. the ironic thing is now that we're going to have to overpay on wages to get average players when they should have done this when the iron was hot.
Really, right?
Yeah, when the iron was hot, right, and when we had Pochettino doing the job that he was doing in spite of this ownership, it's an absolute disgrace. I think, yeah, Jack's right to use the Arsenal comparison. I mean, I know the rumours with Saka's new contract is that he's on 300 grand a week. I reckon he's on closer to 400 because you can sort of back solve it from the. So, you know, us talking about having players on 200 again, we're just miles behind again. And like,
I think that really showed at the weekend as well when they brought on, you know, the subs that they were bringing on compared to, you know, what we had to offer. We had a few academy players on the bench. They're bringing on, you know, Gabriel Jesus, and Havertz wasn't even playing, and then Martinelli and people. It's just an absolute country mile ahead, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you compare it, like you can do. I did the comparison before. You look at wages over the last 10 years, and if you take the big six average versus what we've spent, it's £1 billion more in 10 years, right? So that shows where our level of ambition has been comparably to the rest of the big six. And you know, we've had revenues higher than Arsenal in that time, higher than Chelsea. We're higher than Chelsea right now. So there is no ambition whatsoever with this ownership. There never will be. The other problem is now that we're in that sort of Mike Ashley world where the club actually just needs a cultural reset. I think it's rotten from the bottom to the top to the bottom. You know, I think everything about the football club is rotten. I think the players get away with murder because it's a bit of a holiday camp. You know you're going to get, you know, we moan about wages, but I think at Tottenham, you know, you're going to get paid decently and not have any sort of ambition set on you or have any sort of demands put on you in terms of winning stuff. You know, you're going to have your squad placed because we don't build the squad depth outrightly. There's no strategy whatsoever. So yeah, and sorry to finish on such a depressing negative rant, but until we replace these owners, they can come out and say whatever they like. And in my view, they could even change a bit, but I don't think it's going to make any difference because I think the ship has completely sailed for them, and we desperately need new owners.
Yep. And I think we will pretty much wrap up there. I will just
could I just say just one quick thing. Sorry, mate, just because I know you do want to pleasure, but just like you're saying there, Conor. I mean, the main thing that I do feel about ENIC and whatever they want to rebrand themselves as, it's ENIC, right? They were under Levy in the early days. They were this progressive, imaginative, you know, revolutionary force in English football. They were, right? And I'm not simping for them. I'm not, you know, trying to reverse history. They turned Spurs from, you know, a mid-table Premier League team. We had history, but in the Premier League era, we were a rank average mid-table team. They turned us into what you see today, but they just completely failed to keep up with football. And like you say, Conor, it's just completely left them behind. And it's stark because it's something, to your point at the very top, Billie, we've been called entitled for years as fans. Look at what they did for you. They built you this stadium. When I think most fans have just said they are quite simply, they're running the club into the ground. They're running their own investment into the ground now. The time for them to get out of the club was when they built the stadium. That was the end game for them. That's what they built the club to. That was the end of their journey. But they've clung on now. And look at what they are doing to it. Look at what they've done to it. It's the sheer fact that they haven't even had the sort of the wherewithal to look around them and see that even teams like, and I say this with the greatest of respect, even teams like Bournemouth are overtaking them because they are spending money on good players constantly. And that's what you have to do in the Premier League. You can't coast in the Premier League. You can't just say, well, we're a big club with history and we've got a big stadium, so that will be all right for us. Like every single time we've had a brilliant player, look at that 16-17 team. Every single one of those players has been replaced by a player that is not even half the quality of them. Who have we got that's anywhere close? And look, I don't mean to be horrible to Xavi Simons, but when you're talking about a peak Christian Eriksen, we've got nobody close to that. We're talking Kane, Son, Dele, Alderweireld, Vertonghen. Like, you know, we don't have that focus on replacing players properly or adequately. We take punts on players that are going to come along. So, you know, we've done this thing where we've got Bergvall, Archie Gray and that, and people are sort of saying, well, if we get relegated, at least we'll have them to build around. I don't even think they'll want to stay if we're in the Championship. And that's the truth of the matter. So, look, you know, they've just completely, to Connor's point, they haven't kept up with football. It's completely left them behind.
I think the reason why they don't understand football, and they never have, right? What they've managed to do is they managed to get into the Premier League at a brilliant time, right? They got this sleeping giant in terms of Tottenham, you know, as you say, big fan base, based in London, didn't have a stadium that was like it is now, and the Premier League money absolutely boomed. So they were able to take advantage of all of that stuff, use the club's cash to a level that has never been seen by any other Premier League club to build all of that infrastructure. You know, other than the Glazers, they've put in the least money of any ownership group. We're the only Premier League club in existence that's ever spent more of its own cash on infrastructure than players. So, you know, they knew how to revolutionise revenue streams to the business side of things, but they never understood that football clubs are not meant to be self-sustaining. That's not the way football works, because everyone else's owners will put their hands in their pockets because they know what the real end game is. And the ironic thing is to your point, by sitting on their laurels so much, they reached that peak and it's now going that way, right? And if we get relegated, obviously the valuation of the club is going to half probably. And at the same time, Man City's owners, you know, they bought Man City for what, 300 million or something like that. They spent just over £1 billion, £1.5 billion. Man City's probably worth £6 billion now. So their owners have actually earned more out of doing that. And I know there's a lot of cheating and all of that, but speculating to accumulate. And that's what ENIC have never understood, and they never will. And this is why you need them gone. They just don't understand football, and they don't actually. It's not even just football on the pitch. I don't think they understand the fundamentals of running a football club in the way that every other ownership does.
And it is quite a worrying outlook that we're this low at the moment, and we could get even lower. And then in summer, nothing will potentially change. But I hope Jack won't mind me saying before, just as we wrap up, that he is a new father, and I wish all the best to him and his amazing wife Charlotte. But when a baby's crying, there is, the old classic technique of jangling a set of keys to try and distract it. And I just want to finish on a semblance of positive, Jack. Is all this meaningless in summer if we have a jangly set of keys waved in front of our eyes with a shiny Argentinian set of keys of Pochettino? Is that the sort of magic bullet for all this? And we'll sort of, well, it's horrible. We all hate the owners, don't get me wrong. But is that the sort of magic pill that we're all after? Because I don't know, when we do every single show on this, that we do that, how much we hate the owners. But at the same time, if that man walks through the door on White Hart Lane in the summer, there will be a temporary sort of positive for me, at least. How are you feeling about that if that does happen?
Look, it's definitely, it's a classic case of like there are two contrasting thoughts that can coexist, and you can take something from both of them. Will this be a sticking plaster? Will this be that jangly set of keys from the owners to get us to get off their back so we can sing his magic, all that type of thing? Yes, inevitably so. Equally, would I be absolutely delighted to have somebody back in the club who actually knows the club, who actually loves the fans, knows what this club means to us, knows what this club is capable of, if somebody actually believes in them, if somebody actually gives them the right impetus. We're not talking about somebody that comes out and negs the fans, not somebody that comes out and negs the squad, the club itself, that tries to better themselves. This is a person that basically every time a microphone gets put in front of his face and he's asked about our club, he gives it nothing but love. And that's what we need right now. I think that's what the fan base needs. It's what the club needs. The soul of the club needs to be healed a bit. And you're only going to get that with people in the place that actually know what it means to be Tottenham, knows what it means to have that harmony with the fans, knows what we want and how to achieve that. He's done it before. I know some people are skeptical about it, but I believe in him, and I believe that he could do it again. Look, he's got a big bowl of lemons on his desk. What could go wrong? You know,
exactly. And I feel exactly the same. I know quite a few of us do as well. Connor, I'll just finish with you. Hopefully something a little bit bright to look forward to. But if we go down, does Pochettino still come? Is my question to you, Connor.
I'm not sure he would in that situation, even with how much he loves us. But yeah, no, I agree with Jack. I mean, look, realistically, a new owner's going to happen. Most likely not. So we're not ever going to get that excitement. And
we
I
need a
think the next
distraction,
best
don't we?
thing, the next best thing, and they know this as well. They know this is the perfect PR card. But Poch does unite the fan base in a way that any other manager can't. And again, in a lot of the conversations you've seen on Poch in terms of YouTube and stuff, I hate the whole narrative, oh, he never won anything, because it was by far the best period of my Tottenham supporting life. And as we said before, the job he did was in spite of ENIC. It's such an odd narrative. I mean, we've spoke about it loads, Bill. He had Carter Vickers backing up Alderweireld and Vertonghen on the bench, and Josh Onomar. The starting 11 was great, but the squad was poor. And the job he did was unbelievable in light of that.
So hopefully there is a saviour on the horizon. But just wanted to say thank you. This definitely will not be the last time. Obviously, we cross paths with Jack. He'll be a regular on our show without a doubt, if he'll come back anyway.
Please,
Jack, where can people find you? Because I know you're across various different platforms. Where can people find you?
Well, yeah, Rule the Roost podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I try and do stuff on TikTok and Instagram, but I'm not very good at that stuff. I'm a bit old now, Bill. Do you know what I mean? So,
you're the
OG. Yeah, definitely emphasis on the O. But yeah, it's just listen to the podcast. But yeah, thanks for having me on. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks, lads.
And I know most people will already, but if you don't listen to Rule the Roost, then you're I think one of my favourite things, I don't know whether I prefer it when we lose or when we win, when I'm on my way home from a Tottenham game, and Jack will pretty much do an instant Spurs reaction after. I don't know how you do it, to be honest, Jack. I know that it didn't quite manage it after.
I just couldn't.
I feel that's the first one you missed about 3 years.
I didn't have it.
I highly recommend locking into those after a Spurs win or lose. They're always really, really good listening. And Connor, before we go, any more messages from us, the Whistleblowers?
No, just a massive thanks to Jack for coming on, and please drop us a like and subscribe on the way out. I don't know what we've got planned next, Bill, but we'll probably try and do something
post Fulham, won't we? In the middle of Fulham. Yeah. Well, let's hope we're not. This is our last ever relegation show. Let's hope that.
Please.
And hopefully, massive game, and we'll finish by saying up the Spurs.
Go on, you Spurs.